All right, welcome back to Game Development with Pygame. This is part 20 of our tile-based top-down zombie shooter. And first of all, if you have been following along, I want to thank you for sticking with it this long. The game's really starting to shape up. And one popular feature that's been requested that I decided it was time to start talking about was adding more weapons into the game. So this time around, we're going to take our little pistol that the player has right now, and we're going to also add a shotgun, very popular zombie fighting weapon. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so in the settings right now, we have all this information about how we want our gun to work. But if we're going to have multiple weapons, we're going to want to have different settings for each weapon, right? The fire rate might be different for one gun versus another. Big gun will have a bigger kickback, that kind of thing. So we're going to need a way to organize all this stuff so that we don't have, so we have it easy to change, and it's organized, and it's logically laid out. So we're going to, if we have the concept of having multiple weapons, then we should just group all the data for those weapons together, right? So this is going to become our weapon settings category of our settings file. For now, I'm going to use the same image for all of the bullets. We will talk about changing that later. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a dictionary called weapons that's going to hold each of the different kinds of weapon. Okay, so to start with, so we have the pistol, right? That's the one that we currently are using. Okay, and this is just going to have all the data of that. Okay, so let's see, we want to have, so each of these keys in the dictionary is going to be one of the settings for the bullet, right? So bullet speed is 500. Let's get this over here. The bullet lifetime is 1,000. So I'm going to keep the settings the same on the gun. Oops, I don't want to capitalize that. Bullet. Let's just call this rate, because this is the rate of fire of the gun. The rate is, actually, I'm going to make that slightly bigger. I think our gun was shooting too fast as it was. And this is going to be the pistol. It's a small starting weapon. So the kickback, we've got the spread, which we were using 5. We've got the damage, very important, how much damage it does. And then I'm also going to have a bullet size here. And for now, I'm just going to deal with having large and small. Large will be the size we're using right now. The shotgun, we're going to want to have spray out a bunch of tiny little bullets, or tiny pellets. So we're going to use a small size image for those. But there we go. What else do we need? Oh, I know. And one other thing is the bullet count. So this is how many bullets does this gun fire, right? The shotgun is going to spray out a bunch of small pellets, so that number will be bigger. But this is what the pistol will look like. Okay, and so now I can just duplicate this whole thing. I'm just going to duplicate this to make the shotgun. Okay, and so let's see, we need to, what do we need to do? Oh, we have an extra space here. So all we're going to do for the shotgun is just change the values for these. Okay, the shotgun bullets I think are going to travel a little bit slower. They're going to last less time, right? It's not as long range a weapon. The bullet count, though, is going to be a lot. A bunch of these little bullets are going to spray out. They're going to be small. The shotgun is going to have a little bit bigger kickback and a slower rate of fire, right? You can't shoot it as quickly. It does more damage, sprays out, but you can't repeat fire it as fast. The spread is going to be a lot larger because the bullets are going to fly out ahead of the gun and spread out. So we want them to spread out, and then each bullet itself is going to do a smaller amount of damage, right? But we're firing 12 of them, So we're actually going to be doing one shot can do 60 total damage in theory, which is great when you're up close to a zombie. You hit it with the full blast of the shotgun, it'll do a lot. If they're farther away from you, they spread out. Maybe you'll hit a couple of them at the same time. That's how we want our shotgun to work. So we don't need these individual variables anymore. So there we go. So we have our dictionary of settings for all of our for 2 different weapons that we are going to be using to begin with. Now we also need to deal with the sounds. And instead of having this individual sounds, our weapon sounds is also going to be a dictionary. And in this case, what we're going to do is for each type of weapon, there's going to be a list. Okay. Right now we're keeping that list just having one in it, but if you remember when we first set up the pistol, we were talking about having multiple sounds and then you randomly, what do I name this, shotgun, and then you randomly select from them, and that makes your gun have a little bit more variety. And when we get to really polishing up, we can add some more things into these lists. Okay, so we have all our settings. We have a sound assigned for each type of gun, and we have a bunch of settings for each kind of gun. So now we just need to, over in our load section, make sure we're loading those sounds right so we don't get an error message. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to fill this in a little differently. We're just going to read through that dictionary we made in the settings. So for each weapon in the weapon sounds list there, then we're going to take our dictionary and add an item for it, or we'll add a key for it, and that's going to hold the list. And then for each sound in weapon sounds, for each sound in that dictionary, for each one, right, because it could be a list, we're going to load the sound. And we're going to set the volume, and we're going to add it. Dot append. Okay, there we go. So now we have all of our data created, and we have all of our sounds loaded for our weapons, and we're ready to start using them. All right, and the other thing, I just noticed there's an S on there. Okay. So the other thing too is the image, right? So this bullet image, we actually want 2 of them. We want a large and a small. So we're going to have bullet images also be a dictionary. Dictionaries are so useful. And bullet images large will be this one that we have been using. And bullet images small, so why did I put curly brackets there? Bullet images large and bullet images small. Small is just going to be the same image. We're just going to scale it down. So we want bullet images large, and we're going to scale it to 10 by 10. Okay, and that way we will have both size bullets ready to go. Okay, now if you run it, you should be able to load, but when you try and shoot, you're going to get an error message because we've changed around all the weapon data, so we can't shoot yet. So we need to go over here to our player. And the one thing we need to add to the player when it starts is we need to add a variable here to hold what weapon he's carrying. So we're going to say he starts out with the pistol. And that's the weapon you start with. And now what we'll have to do is we're going to have to redo our shoot code. Right now, when we press the space bar, we do all of this stuff. But we're going to have to do some different things for different weapons, and we're going to have to detect which weapon we have and all that kind of stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a separate function for shooting. Okay, so all pressing the space bar is going to do is self.shoot. Okay, and then this stuff here is going to be what it does. Now we are going to change this around a bit. Let's indent that a little bit. So we still need to match the weapon rate, but now instead of using this variable, it's going to depend on which weapon we have. So from our weapons dictionary, we're going to say whichever weapon we have, and the key we want to look at is the rate. Right? So if we've passed that amount of time, then we're going to do it. And this will stay the same. We have a barrel offset, but we're keeping the same one. We're not changing the player's image for different weapons just yet, but we can do that later. But here we don't want to spawn. We don't necessarily want to spawn just one bullet, right? And we also need to kick back. So actually, let's move the kickback line up here. And the amount it kicks you back is going to be dependent on the weapon. And we're going to use the whatever the kickback setting is. And now because each bullet or each gun can shoot multiple bullets, we need to do a little loop here, and we're going to count to whatever the weapon we're holding has in the bullet count setting. And we don't need these options autocomplete. All right, so now we're counting to how many there are. Okay, and the spread is going to be different as well. Right now, in our bullet, when we spawn the bullet, we're figuring out the spread. But our problem is different weapons are going to have different spreads. So we're going to calculate the spread before we spawn the bullet. And that's going to be just a uniform between whatever weapon we have and its spread value. And we're going to just copy and paste that here because we want it to be positive or negative. So now the bullet, now we're going to spawn a bullet. Self.game, position that we calculated, and instead of giving the direction here, it's the direction rotated by whatever the spread we just calculated was. Okay. We're going to play a sound, but it's going to be from the game weapon sounds self.weapon. And then we're going to spawn a muzzle flash just once. We don't need to spawn a muzzle flash for each bullet, because when we spawn the 12 bullets for the shotgun, that's not going to be good. Okay, so now we've added that when we spawn the bullet, we're passing the direction now, and we don't need to add the spread. So on the bullet down below, when we spawn the bullet, what we're going to do is go down to our bullet here. We don't need that. We don't need, let's see, velocity is dirt. We're not going to rotate it because we already did rotate it. So it's just that, and then we also the bullet speed could be different. So we've got to look at whatever weapon the player is holding and look at its bullet speed setting. All right, and I think, oh, one other thing, the image here. So here we've got to use bullet images, whichever weapon, whichever weapon we have, bullet size. Okay, let's give this a shot. So we're going to run it. Oh, and we forgot over here. One other thing is the bullet. We have to know when to delete the bullet. So we have to check the bullet lifetime. Whatever weapon the player is holding, bullet lifetime. There we go. All right. And now when we hit the mobs, they need to subtract however much the damage the particular bullet does. All right, so that's in our update over here, bullet damage. So we have to subtract from whatever weapon, so the player, whatever weapon the player is holding, damage. There we go. All right. Okay. Okay, so the pistol is working again, just like it was before. There's a little sound issue happening, but I'm going to talk about how to fix that in a minute, because first what we want to do is let's just go and see if we go up here to the player again, what happens if we have them holding a shotgun instead. There we go, nice. Okay, so you see the spread of bullets come flying out. But notice I'm not doing very much damage, right? And that's because we're only taking away 1 bullet's worth of damage, because in the collision code, when we had the bullet hit the mob, we were only checking if it got hit. Right, so let's see, bullets hit mobs. No, that's right. Oh, right. So remember, we're doing a group collide here. So this hits list that it gives you back is actually not a list, it's actually a dictionary. And it shows for each mob that got hit, a list of the bullets that hit it. So we're going through each mob that gets hit and only subtracting once for each mob that got hit. But if that mob got hit by more than 1 bullet, we have to multiply this by the length of that mob's list of bullets that hit it. Right? So I'll go through that again, it might be a little bit confusing. So hits is going to be a dictionary. Each key of the dictionary will be a mob that got hit. Right? And each piece of data in the dictionary for each key is a list of the bullets that hit that mob. So mob number 1, you know, we shoot the shotgun, we might hit multiple mobs, right? And the first mob might get hit with 2 bullets. And the second mob gets hit with 4 bullets, right? So this list is going to go through each mob, so each key in the dictionary. So for each mob that got hit, we need to subtract its health by the damage of each bullet times the number of bullets that hit it. So how long that list of bullets that hit it was. Okay, that way it'll take away the right amount of damage for each. Okay, so if I shoot this guy up close with the shotgun, yeah, see his health went right down, and 2 shots I can get rid of him. Okay, and that's good. And the last thing I want to deal with is this little sound issue. So if we run this, see if I can demonstrate here. I'm going to hold down the space bar to shoot the shotgun repeatedly, okay? Alright, you see how it's not playing every time I shoot. And part of that is because the previous sound hasn't finished playing. You might be able to see this with the pistol as well. Let's go back to the pistol for a second. Okay. All right, you see how I'm not shooting, it's not playing the sound every time. It's a little bit erratic, okay? And that just has to do with you're trying to play a sound and you haven't finished playing that sound and you've already started telling the computer to play another one, and it starts to be a problem. You also might have been noticing, this may or may not be happening to you, a little bit of lag between the sounds, when the code says to play the sound and when it actually happens. And usually that has to do with the way that Pygame buffers sound before it plays it, right? It tries to make sure it can load the whole sound before it plays it, but sometimes that takes too long. And so if you Google this online, you'll see there's a lot of tricks that you can do to improve it. And one of those is before the Pygame init, there is a pre-init setting that you can do on the mixer to customize the sound settings. And these are the defaults except for this last one, which is the buffer size. And if we make the buffer a bit bigger than the default, we can get a better, we can get less lag whenever we want to play the sound, because the sound will already be in memory and it can just fire it off. Okay. So the other thing we want to do is we want to make sure we're not playing, if we're shooting really fast, we don't want to drop the sounds that we play, right? So here in the shoot, before we play the sound, okay, I'm going to choose the sound before I play it, okay? I'm going to choose whichever sound I want to play. And if that sound, right, we can see how many channels is that sound playing on right now. And if it's already playing on more than 2 channels, then we're going to stop one of them, then we'll play the sound. And what that'll do is let it not have too many overlapping copies of the sound playing. Let's see if you can hear the difference with this. See, it's much more consistent. Let's go back to the shotgun here. We'll go back to the shotgun on the player, and see, much better. And the splat when the zombie dies will be, yeah. See that? So between those two things, between limiting the number of multiple copies of the sound you play at once, and by tweaking that buffer setting, which you may need to tweak a little bit more yourself. It depends on your particular system. You might be able to get away with 1024. It has to be powers of 2, by the way. And I'll put a little link below. You can go look at the documentation for it on the Pygame documentation if you're curious more about what that means. But I think that'll do it for this video. We've gone pretty long already. But now we've done a lot of work. We've got 2 different kinds of weapons now. In the next video, we can start getting a way to pick them up, because you probably want to start, the player with the pistol, and the shotgun is going to be one we can find somewhere. And maybe you have a way to switch in between them. That will have to come a little bit later when we add another item on the map, like we did with the health pack, right? Another one of these items, we can make a shotgun pickup, and that'll let you switch to the shotgun item. Okay, as always, thanks for watching. I hope that this all made sense to you and you're starting to get a good handle on some of the usefulness of Python dictionaries. They're really useful. You can see by setting all this up especially like when we did the shoot code, right? We didn't have to have a whole bunch of ifs here saying if they're using the gun, use this. If they're using the shotgun, use this. It's all just loading whatever settings each particular weapon has. Okay, and that'll be really useful. We add 3 more weapons, 3 different kinds of, and this code won't even change a little bit, right? It'll all be ready to go already, and we can just drop in more weapons whenever we want to. All right, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please hit the like button below and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you next time. Bye.